and welcome back to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight we've got 4-color control versus Death and Taxes. Let's get into it. On the left we have Alan playing Blue-Red Delver. Wait a second. No, we don't. He's playing 4-color control this week. This, of course, is a collection of good cards in 4 different colors. We have Planeswalkers that kind of are the big win condition here with Comet, Stellar Pup, and Minsk and Boo. Of course, 4 Uros really hold the glue to this deck, and then we have just a bunch of 1 or 2 of some endurance, running the 4th Aerolingus to create creatures and take the Monarch. Life from the Loam to bring stuff back. This card keeps showing up everywhere. Lorien Revealed, which allows you to get an island early game. I guess it cuts down on the amount of lands that you have to run. He's actually only running 19 lands here, and then if it's super late game and you're not doing anything else, it can draw you 3 cards for 5 mana. Not the best value as far as a draw spell, but the island cycling, I guess, is good enough to make up for it. And then everything else is, Ponders, Prismatic Endings. This one runs 2 Terminus. It is a control deck, so this card is still good despite not having the Sensei's Divining top around. And just some control stuff. So, yeah, it's a control deck. 4-color control. I'm not going back to record that again, so here is the actual deck list since I had forgotten to change it from the Stifle Shadow from the last video. So, if you are interested in the deck list, here it is now, as I am talking. Take a good look at it. Maybe pause the video so you can look at the deck list. And now we're going to move on. On the right, we have Carlos playing Death and Taxes. He brings this deck in every once in a while when he's not playing his Loam Pox deck or Mono Black Pox list, or even Humans. So, I believe this is a Yorion list. I'm not entirely certain, but if it's not, Carlos, I apologize. But this is the version we're going to talk about. So Death and Taxes, of course, that plucky underdog that is just so good at forcing your opponent to be in awkward situations and make awkward choices all the time. Based around, originally, the Thalia Guardian of Thraben to make everything cost a little bit more, but has just evolved into so much more. Each of these cards has their own special place as the game evolves, and being able to use the Recruiter of the Guard to go and find whichever of those silver bullets that you need for your board state makes this a go-to deck for many a Legacy player. Now that we've talked about both decks, let's go and see how these games go. All right, players are ready, shuffled up, and good to go. Let's get these games started. We got Plains into Mother of Runes. Always a great start for the D&T player. Wanting to make sure you get that Mother of Runes down. Turn 1 is best case scenario, being able to provide protection for your other creatures. Alan doing a ponder here. Clearly doesn't really care about Mother of Runes or didn't have a way to answer it. He does have that Force of Will, so Mother of Runes must not be a huge threat for him at the moment. We see a Wasteland for that volcanic island there, but not a whole lot else happening. Didn't attack with the Mother of Runes. Makes sense. Don't want to bring the shields down after getting past Summoning Sickness. Thalia Guardian of Thraben. Now this is a card that is probably going to get answered here. Alan pitching a Force or a Ponder to the Force of Will, countering it. Because Thalia would have just made his entire life very, very difficult. Seeing a Horizon Canopy from Carlos. So a can land. More than likely Carlos doesn't have any green in his deck. This is simply to draw a card. By paying 1 mana, give D&T a little bit of draw advantage. We see the GT coming in. So a very good equipment, but with only a Mother of Runes, Carlos needs something else to kind of stick here in order to really be effective. I mean, the Thalia being in play would have been D&T firing on all cylinders here, but Alan wisely countering that one spell that was going to give him the most trouble. We're seeing a double fetch here from Alan, getting a tropical island and what appears to be a Savannah into play, and another tropical island. We're going to see that Uro going to be escaped here. Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, one of the win conditions of the 4-color control deck. Going into the yard for now, getting to put another land into play. kind of negating any of Carlos's land management strategies here. Seeing a Stoneforge Mystic fetching up the Cauldra Complete. Cauldra, one of the best equipments ever printed, probably. Being able to end the game in a couple turns. Unfortunately, there's a lot of really good answers for Cauldra at the moment, especially with Cast into the Fire being among them. Seeing Alan on his turn after Uro here, trying to decide what he's going to do for 4 mana, 5 mana. Just play a Teferi. Teferi, always a good planeswalker. Really stops people from being able to interact in any way, shape, or form. Let's switch to this printing, shall we? There we go. So not being able to interact at instant speed, bouncing the Umezawa's Jite back to hand, being able to get that Culture Complete into play with the Stoneforge Mystic. Clearly, Alan has some answer for it, or else he would have bounced the Stoneforge Mystic back to hand, although I guess he didn't want to set up himself to have to deal with another threat in the form of Batterskull if Carlos runs that. So it gives up the Teferi to the token, the Germ token on this Culture Complete. We're seeing a Brainstorm. That Prismatic Ending is going to do a really good job of getting rid of that Germ off of the Culture Complete. Culture still will have... Oh, that's an even better way to do it. So a Terminus is going to put all of the creatures on the bottom of their owner's library. I think Carlos got a little aggressive there, sending his Culture Complete equipment to the bottom of the library as well. Cauldra itself is not actually a creature, it's just a living weapon that puts a creature onto play. So he would still have that equipment. We will see if it ends up mattering in this game or not. Teferi back again. Seeing Rishadenport tap down one of the green-blue sources here. Teferi's going to tick up, basically saying he can play sorceries at instant speed now. Fires off that Prismatic Ending at sorcery speed, though, to get rid of Mother of Runes. Ooh, this is a good one. So the Skyclave Apparition coming in, being able to get rid of any non-land, non-token permanent that you don't control, CMC 4 or less. So almost everything in Legacy, basically, unless it's some huge threat like a Titan or something. And so this is gone for good. Alan can't get this back. It's not like a temporary exile effect. The card that is exiled is gone forever, but if Alan is able to remove the apparition, he will get a spirit with power and toughness equal to the CMC of his card removed. Seeing a Life from the Loam. This is going to get back all of those beautiful fetches that Alan needed, or had already used in the game. Basically 3 for 1ing himself, which is good. And this, it sounds like a bad thing when I say it like that, but got back 3 lands, and he can even pull back Life from the Loam by dredging it if he wants. I'm not 100% sure what that card is with the counter on it. But we're seeing Carlos crash in for 2 damage with the Skyclave Apparition. Alan says, yeah, that's fine. Because at some point here, Alan is going to recur the Uro that is sitting in his graveyard. We see Comet come into play. So Comet is that random planeswalker from, I think it's called Unfinity, the newest unset. And it does all kinds of things. So with a 5, I think it deals damage equal to its counters, and then at -2. So Carlos can actually get in here, bring Comet down to 1, maybe. Really depends. He still has the Jite in hand, so we'll see if he deploys that here, if he goes for another Thalia. Yeah, here's Jite. Does it resolve, Alan? He says, okay, yeah, that's fine. So he does equip it here. And a fetch from Alan is not good news for Carlos. Gets blue mana, so it might be a Brainstorm. Oh, it's a Endurance. which is going to bottom Carlos's graveyard to the bottom of his library, but there is a Swords to Plowshares for the Endurance, and Alan lets that happen. Ooh, so a 6 is great. Gets to roll twice more. So 1 or 2 makes some squirrels, and there's a 5. Now it's going to kill itself, unfortunately. So it's going to deal 2 damage. Oh, the +1. Or no, it was down to 1. And then it would have went up. Just, is it +2? Yeah. I can't really tell on my my thing here. So I think he might have gone up 2 and then down 2, so he's back to 1. Seeing the same Uro. This is the one escaped from the yard now. So we have 2 squirrels and an Uro in play. Alan just dropping 1,000 lands into play here. Has so many lands, he doesn't know what to do. Carlos, undaunted by the amount of lands in play, plays a Sarah Avenger. Let's see if we have that one on our list here. Doesn't look like it, but this is a 3/3 with Vigilance and Lifelink. Well, I don't think it has Lifelink, actually. I think it's just a 3/3 with Vigilance. Going to kill off those 2 squirrels with the Umezawa's Jite triggers, giving -1/-1 to target creature until end of turn, and deploying Athalia as well. Alan having the swords for the Thalia. And here we go. Comet does kill himself this time with that roll of a 4. Dealing 1 damage to something, probably Carlos's face, because he couldn't deal with anything else. And Alan crashing in with Uro for 6. Now this creature doesn't have trample, so you can put anything in front of it, but getting that advantage every single turn of gaining 3 life, drawing a card, and putting a land into play. We just saw Lorien revealed actually cast. It's basically just pay 5, draw 3 cards. Not an amazing value, but being able to do that island cycling allows you to cut down on lands in your deck. And it's pretty fantastic. So, I mean, with it being super late game like this, drawing those 3 cards, 5 mana almost doesn't mean anything to Alan at this point. We saw that Mirren Crusader come into play, and an Umezawa's Jite loaded up on it. Unfortunately, Alan did have that prismatic ending to deal with the Umezawa's Jite. And now we see Alan Carlos turning it sideways for 5. The Mirren Crusader, fortunately for Carlos, has protection from green and black. So he is going to be able to bounce off of that Uro all day. Although we do see another Terminus, so getting rid of the Uro, but gets rid of that huge board presence that Carlos was starting to build up. And Alan left with the 3/3 Spirit. Now at this point, Carlos going through 2 Terminuses. Yeah, he's going to wrap it up. There's pretty much nothing left in the tank after that. And we're seeing a Fields out of the gate here. Fields of... what is this card called? Fields of Trocaire is kind of a card that signals that you are probably running at least 1 Cataclysm in your deck somewhere, because you are able to sacrifice the Fields of Trocaire and go and get a Plains. So it kind of replaces itself. 2 mana for a Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace, one of those better graveyard effects. So it's got that trigger when it comes into play to exile all cards in the yard, and then the replacement effect that says any future cards going to the graveyard are exiled instead. So nobody gets graveyards now. No more Uro shenanigans. Alan not really doing anything. He says, okay, I'll play some fetch lands. I think maybe he did a blue spell of some sort. A Ponder or Brainstorm or something. Thinking about this one hard. So the Recruiter of the Guard would allow Carlos to go and get pretty much any creature out of his deck, power or toughness 2 or less. I think Alan's really hemming and hawing. He does finally fire off the Force of Will and decides, Carlos, you cannot go and get the thing that you want. Seeing a Horizon Canopy, pop that immediately. Seeing a Dress Down, an Endurance that looked like a Meltdown in Alan's hand. Wasteland. And an Umazawa's Jite. No creatures for the Jite at this point. Alan cracking some lands. He is making himself a little bit more vulnerable to Wasteland, but I mean, at this point, Carlos has already seen, or Alan has already seen 2 Wastelands out of Carlos. And they're exiled. They're not coming back. So it makes sense at this point. I mean, you know, crack them if you got them. I think Alan only has 1 island as well in his entire deck. That Endurance that Alan flashed into play to have some sort of board presence was quickly dealt with the Swords to Plowshares, being able to exile any creature, gain some life equal to its toughness. Basically, just gain the life back from its fetches. 3 more mana is going to have Teferi come back into play, bouncing that enchantment. And we're going to see the same thing, the Skyclave Apparition. It's going to exile that. And Alan fires off a Terminus on just the Skyclave Apparition, but that is good enough to get him 3... a 3/3 for his troubles. And we see Carlos just going down on the board here. It's kind of fortunate to watch Carlos commit to the board like this with his artifacts, since we know the Meltdown is coming. There it is. Meltdown being able to destroy any number of artifacts with CMC X or less, and Alan paid 2 into it. But we do see a Mirran Crusader here, which is a very good creature. Although 3 mana pips is something that Alan can produce, and he does have a Prismatic Ending, he also has the Dress Down that can just turn into a 2/2. Man, Dress Down's a good card. And here's the Cataclysm. So Cataclysm, you're going to choose specifically an artifact, creature, enchantment, and land, and then you get to sacrifice the rest. So I think Carlos thinks this is a pretty good spot for him, since he's going to be up 2 lands, and he gets to keep his entire rest of his board. So basically he's just sacrificing 2 lands. So not a huge loss to him. We did see Alan go ahead and brainstorm there, and now he's floating some mana. Does the Flagstones not trigger if it doesn't go to the grave? It was put into... oh no! Ugh. So Flagstones doesn't work with Rest in Peace on the field because it never goes into a graveyard. It's exiled instead. So he does not get his Flagstones trigger, unfortunately. We see Alan with the Lorien revealed, finding that island. And then a Ponder. Now Alan's sitting in a really good spot. He's got a Force of Will for anything that's super problematic. A Solitude. He's like, I'm doing this before you declare blocks, so that you can take some damage there. He also has that Dress Down still in hand, I'm almost certain. Or maybe he got rid of it. 3 mana for the Prismatic Ending. And Carlos is hellbent. This is tough. 2 planes. We see an Uro, so that's eventually going to make things worse. Recruit of the Guard. Alan says absolutely not. Ooh, we see out of Alan's board is a Containment Priest. So non-token creature right into the battlefield. If it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So this is basically going to stop any of the Aether Vial triggers that Carlos has. See a Mother of Runes. Source of Plowshares. Really keeping the board clear now. Alan on that 6-turn plan. A Wasteland. Keeping the mana controlled, though. Not using that Rashadan port, though. Yeah, there you go. Tap down that island. We see a Ponder. Looking through that enormous exile pile. My goodness. Carlos playing a land and pass. A lot of land flood. Kind of good, but at the same time, kind of not good. Alan has a billion cards in hand. But as long as we can keep that mana down, it's not going to be the worst. There's only a couple cards in his hand that are able to cast for free, like Force of Will. And a Lorien revealed. Island cycled. Is going to get a Tundra. Of course, had the Force of Will for that Stoneforge Mystic last turn. Down to 2. Oh no! And a Prismatic Ending is going to deal with the Rest in Peace. Decides to vial in the Stoneforge Mystic, but it is countered and exiled because of Containment Priest. Unfortunate, and that looks like that's the end of that game. Alan takes it 2-0. Hey, thanks everyone for watching that video and watching it all the way to the end. If this is your first time to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And maybe hitting the notification icon so that you can stay up to date on all of our cool stuff. Thanks as always to Spellhold Games and Collector Legion for allowing us to record in their play space. This channel wouldn't exist without you, so thank you very much. And that'll do it for us this time. As always, I am Eugene, and this is Tuesday Night Legacy. We'll see you next time.